Good morning. So I have done the ribbing for both of my fronts. And as you can see, I'm knitting them both at the same time, so they're on the same needle, but I'm using a separate ball of yarn for each side. So I tried to look at the balls to make sure that I can have them looking the same, because that's just the way I try and do it. But if they look completely different, it doesn't matter. So I've got my ribbing ready here, and the other thing I've got ready here are my pockets, the backing to my pockets. And as you can see, they're different colours. It doesn't matter, you won't see the backing. I have used the bigger needle, the 5mm, to make the pockings, the backings for the pocket, because you want it to be the same size as your stocking stitch. So I didn't use the 4mm that I'm doing the ribbing with. And how I measure for my pocket, this one's extremely narrow, but my pocket isn't just to put my hand in and walk around with my hands in my pockets. It's just for a little tissue, because I get a lot of hay fever. And so it's just to put my hand in, so it's actually very narrow. This one's probably too narrow. I did it 18 stitches. I could have done it about 22 or 23 stitches. But I can just put my hand in, and the length is just getting my fingers in. So you can make it as wide and as long as you like. I will explain in great detail as I'm knitting, because it is quite hard now, that the length I make the back of the pocket has to be in between where I twist for the cable. So say you've twisted on this row and you're going to twist on this row, it is very hard for my brain to work out how to add a pocket at the same time. So I make sure I'm adding my pocket in these rows here, so the rows match up. But I will show you exactly how I do that as I'm working along. So I do have another playlist called Knit Along Cardigan, where I show in great detail and how I put pockets and cables on in other playlists. So go and have a look at those too, but this one will be done in detail as well. The other things I'm using are little stitch markers, just to put them on to remind myself what I'm doing. And I've got these little cable needles. You can get the new ones that curve down like that. I find I don't really need them. I'd be battling to try and get the stitches back up. And these are also probably called double pointed needles, but in our day they were called cable needles. And you can get them different widths, and you can get them different sizes. This one's quite long, but I find the shorter one is just fine for me to use. And then I'm going to use these big, huge pins. These are to put the stitches on for the top of the pocket, so that it just holds where the ribbing is going to go that I put at the end. If you don't have something like this, don't worry, just use a great big long piece of waste yarn. Try and use yarn that's thicker than what you're actually knitting with, and that way you can actually knit and pick up the stitches off your waste yarn very easily, but it's much easier if it's a thicker piece of yarn. So if you don't have all these bits and pieces, it doesn't matter. So now these are my two fronts. This is where my button band's going to go. I knit separate button bands, narrow ones that go up. So I have decreased enough on the front that I can add the button band here. So I've taken off about 6 or 8 stitches off the width. So I halved the number of stitches to my back, and I just remembered to take off the stitches for the button band. The very first cardigan I did, I forgot to take off the stitches for the button band, and of course when I added the button band, it ended up being too big in the front, but that's okay, I still wear it. It just ended up being a little bit baggy for me. So now I'm going to show you how and where I place my stitch markers. Right, so I've actually put the first lot of stitch markers in, So I have decided the purple ones are my pockets, and my pockets were 18 stitches wide. So here is 18 stitches, but I've decided to put them in 8 stitches from the buttonhole edge. You have your pockets close to where your front of your tummy is. Now I could have done 10 stitches in, I could have done 6 stitches in, I could have done 5. It depends how close you want the edge of your pocket to your buttonhole. So I counted 8 in and I put my marker sitting here. I hope this is clear for you. And then I counted across 18 and I've used the same stitch marker and I've put it there. So these 18 stitches are exactly where my pocket goes. Now these orange ones, my cable is going to go up the middle here. The orange ones show me where I start and finish some purl rows. The cable goes down the middle, and just to make a bit of a border, I'm going to have some purl rows. So 18 divided up with all the numbers, it came to, I've got 3 stitches here, I'm going to do stocking stitch, and then I've got 3 stitches here, I'm going to do purl, and then the 6 in the middle, I'm going to do the cable. And so I will be doing exactly the same on the other side. So now I'm just going to do stocking stitch across, and I've started using my big 5mm needle to change up after the ribbing, after my 4mm needle. So I'm just going to, knit across, and I do apologize if it sounds a bit confusing. It's harder for me to explain than to show. So if you persevere with me and watch what I do, then it is much easier to understand. The weather's crazy today. We've just had beautiful sunshine, then we've had rain, and now we're having beautiful sunshine. As you can see, I do the old-fashioned English knitting, throwing my yarn around. Now the purple ones is where my pocket's going to go. We're not doing pockets yet, so I'm going to just move it over and ignore it. And then these stitches here, I'm not ready to do the cable and the border yet, because that's where it starts here. So I'm still just doing the knit stitch. Now this is where things start to change. I'll just move this over onto the other needle. So this is where there's going to be 3 stitches for a little border before my cable. It just makes the cable pop out a little bit more. So it's a bit awkward around these stitch markers, but I've moved my yarn forward to do the purl stitch, and I'm going to purl 3. You can make your border wider if it fits in, and you can make it 4 stitches. But I've done it 3, so then I go back to my knit stitch. Now I'm not ready to do my cable yet. I'm going to do my cable on the 5th row, and this is row number 1 I'm doing, and I'm going to write that down on a piece of paper. So because I'm not doing the twisting for the cable, I'm just going to knit my 6 stitches, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 stitches is what I do for a cable, because it's just the size cable I like. You can do 8 if you like. Now here's the 3 stitches, will be the other side of the border for the cable. So I'm going to bring my yarn forward and purl those. And then I'm going to put my yarn back to do a knit stitch. That was the end of the, I probably don't need that this side. I probably should have put it this side where I remind myself where to. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to need it on the other side. So I'm going to go back to doing the knit stitch now all the way across back to the end. That will actually remind me to start knitting on the other side instead of purling. There's my other one for the pocket, what we're not putting in yet, so I'll just continue to ignore that. And I'm going to knit to the end. So there you are, there's my first front started. So when I got up to this cable, it reminded me to do the purls, and you can just see them starting here. And then I knew to start the purls just before here, but I've left this in after all because when I turn it around, it will remind me to knit the other side, knit 3 stitches for the purls. So it'll make sense as I keep working along. So I'll quickly show you this side. So I'm going to knit. It's always hard using a bigger needle from the smaller needle. Just making it fit there. So this first one, it's a different colour. I don't have more purples, but that's where the pocket's going to go. So we're just going to ignore that and we'll keep knitting. Now this stitch marker reminds me, oh, it's a bit hooked up. I'm just going to undo that. It's hooked up in my yarn a little bit. So I'll just put it on like that. That stitch marker reminded me that that's where I'm going to start purling because I'm doing the border for the cable. So I'm going to purl 3. It just ended up being 3 stitches. It depends on how wide your pockets are. Then I'm going to go back to my knit stitch and I knit 6 for the cable because we're not ready to do it yet. How many have I done? 4. I'll do 2 more. So I'm knitting 6. And then I remember I do 3 purls here. So I bring my yarn forward. I do 3 purls for my border. It'll make sense when I've got much further along, and then I'll go back to the knit stitch, and this is just to remind me to do knitting now until I get to the end. This is the pocket one. We're not ready to put the pocket in, so we ignore that one. you can hear my needles hitting the side of the desk. So I could have sped this up, but I want you to just see every step that I do. Now I'm going to put this needle away so I don't accidentally use it again, which has happened to me in the past, and make sure that I'm going to use my 5. So that's me starting. So I'm going to turn it around. And on my piece of paper, I'm just going to write a number 1 to remind myself I've done 1 row. I forget very easily. Now, I'm just going to show you to remind you how I do the other side. So this is the purl side of the stocking stitch cardigan. So I'm just going to be purling. So I'm going to purl up until this first marker, which is where the pocket goes, and then I'll turn the camera back on. So I have purled all the way up to the marker, which for my pocket, so I'll move it over because we're not doing the pocket at the moment. And then these are my stitches I need to remember. No. So then I just purl those 3 after the pocket because, catch it there. And then I need to remember to go back and knit. This marker reminds me to knit 3 stitches because that's where we purled them on the other side. You can see even I'm getting a bit confused. I have to think carefully. And then I go back to the purl stitch because I'm going to purl, and this is where the cable is going to be. So I'll count them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So purling, and then I go back to the knit stitch because those 3 beside the cable are purled on the other side to make a border pattern. So I have to knit them this side. And that just reminds me to start the purling on the other side. So ignore that, and then I just go back to my purling on the other end. Oh, sorry, was out of shot. But I'm sure you're getting the idea. I'm just purling the other side, except I have to remember to knit those purl stitches. And then I move that other pocket marker over and purl to the end. I keep forgetting to look up at the camera to make sure I'm in shot. I do apologise. So that's, you can see it starting up now. I've got some, I'll just quickly turn it around and show you. You can see the purl stitches each side of these 6 where I'm going to cable. So that's what I'm just remembering to do. So before I forget, I just always make sure I do the other side of the front, so I remember what I'm doing. So exactly the same. I won't show you this one. Exactly the same where I've got my purls each side of the cable. I need to knit. So this one's going to remind me to knit 3 stitches. So I'll come back when that's finished. Right, so that is row 2 finished. And I'm just making sure I write that down. And so I'm just going to do that for 2 more rows. Rows 3 and 4, I'm going to do exactly the same. On row 5, when I'm back on this front side that's when I'm going to show you how to twist the cable. So I won't show you the rows 3 and 4. It's exactly the same. Just remember, you do your knitting this side, your purling on the back, but where you've got your border, you do your purls on the front side and your knits on the back, and that's what these markers are to remind me. So I'm going to do the next 2 rows, and then I'll come back when I'm on row 5 and show you how to do the twisting. Right, so I've done row 3 and 4, and I'm back on my 5th row. So I'm ready to do the exciting part, which is twisting for the cable. So here you can see, this is the knit side of my stocking stitch. There's the knit side, and just along here you can see the purl stitches on each side, and the cable's going to go in the middle here. So the stitch markers are to make me remember to stop and think I need to change something. So you could have stitch markers on each side of these purls, but then I find I've just got too many. But they're just to make me stop and think of what I'm meant to be doing. So now I'm just going to knit across right up to where I do these purl stitches, because you don't need to watch me do that. And then we're going to get on with twisting the cable. Okay, so I'm right up to this stitch marker, which reminds me to do my purling. So I'm going to do my 3 purl. I'm going to move my camera a little bit so I'm a bit closer to my knitting, because I think I'm going off camera. So there's my 3 purl stitches, and I'll put it back because I'm going to be knitting. And these next 6 stitches are what I'm going to be doing the cable with. So I get my cable stitch, or whatever you have available to use, and I'm going to take off the first 3 stitches, and I'm going to just bring them to the front. Now you can bring them to the front, or you can take them to the back. It doesn't matter which way you do your cable. It'll just change the way it looks when it crosses over. But stay consistent for that cable that you do. So I'm going to bring it to the front, and every time I twist I will stay on the front for this cable. If I was doing the second cable beside it, just further along, I could twist it, instead of being over the top this way, I could twist it and have it at the back, and it would twist a different way, which would make the cables look different. But I would have to be consistently at the back for that cable. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm just going to hold that at the front there. And then I'm going to knit the next 3 stitches off my needle. Getting around a cable needle, you just have to pretend it's not there. So I just do the next 3 stitches, and then I'll just move that back so I don't lose my stitches. And then you get your cable, holding it the same way where your stitches were. Don't twist it around, it's just the same way, and then you knit those 3 stitches on the cable needle. I'm always slow. I'm not fast at these things, but I get it done. So there you go, I've done a twist, and then I want to do my 3 purls for the border on the other side, and I'm going to do my 3 purls. You might hear my little dog rolling around playing with her toys in the background, and then I'll bring it back to knitting, my yarn back, and I'm just going to move that out of the way so I can do my knit to the end, and then I'll show you. That's where the pocket goes. We're still not going to do the pocket for a while, so we just ignore the pocket markers. Alright, so I'm just going to show you. You can't really see it at this stage very clearly, but you can see, so I've got my stocking stitch here, and there's my pocket marker, and it just happened to be 3 until I wanted to do my cable work, as I call the whole thing, with the cable twist and the purls. This reminded me to purl, and you can just sort of start seeing where I twisted, and then I've got my purls the other side, and then the rest of my stocking stitch. So it starts to look really clearer as you work your way up. So the next time you do your twist, you're going to count this side as row 1, and then the front will be 2, 3, 4, 5. We won't twist on this row 5. It'll then be row 6. So every time upwards now, it'll be row 6 that you twist. So that's why it says in pattern books, you twist your cable on row 5 and then the 6th row thereafter, because you're counting it different. So I'm just going to quickly show you the twist again on this side, because I never put down my work and leave it. I always do both fronts so I don't get confused. So it's always on the same needle. So I'm just going to knit. That's my pocket marker. We'll ignore that. And then I knit up to my purls. This one reminds me to purl, and I won't even need that one later, but just at the moment it reminds me until I can start to see the pattern clearly. So now I do my 3 purls. Put my yarn back to do knitting, and I take off the first 3 and I bring it to the front. I'm going to knit the 3 on the needle, 3 because I'm doing my cable with 6. You could do it 8, and you could do 4 in the front and 4 knitting for the other side. So I just do 3 each. So I'm just going to move those stitches back on that needle because they might drop off, making sure I've got my stocking stitch row exactly right, it's not twisted, and then I'm going to knit these 3 off the cable needle, and I'm just holding it to the front the same as the other side. I could hold it to the back to make the cable look different on this front, but I'm not going to. Then I'm going to do my 3 purls for my border stitches. Put my yarn back, and then I knit to the end, because that's just my pocket marker coming up, and we still ignore that. And I'll explain when we do the pockets. So I'll just knit to the end. So there you go. I've done a twist on both sides, and you can see the pearl border on each side of the twist. So I hope that's starting to make sense now. You can see it. I've probably confused you trying to explain it. It's much easier when you see it. So when I turn, and I'll do the pearl side of the stocking stitch. There's my pocket marker. I ignore that. There's my marker, which reminds me, I'm doing a pearl side. It's the reverse side, but it reminds me to do my 3 knit stitches. Then I'm just going to purl normally my 6 cable stitches, and then I have to remember to knit my 3 for the border, and then I go back to purling to the end, and the same on this side. So you just got to remember to knit your purls and purl your knits to make that border stay the same, and that's my reminder that I stop and think that I have to actually do something. So when do we put in our pockets? My pockets are 32 rows long. Sometimes are 28 and sometimes they're different. I just do them different lengths because I make sure they're going to be in the middle of a twisting row. So as you're doing this, every so often, I'll start putting a stitch marker here about every 5 rows to help me count 5, 10, 15, 20 until I get up to row 32, and then we'll put the pocket in because the pocket gets sewn down on the reverse side on the ribbing. So that won't go in. This won't go in for a while, so you don't worry about the pockets for a while. So what I'm going to do now is I'll do the reverse side, and I'm just going to continue and keep going until I need to twist again. And when I twist again, I'll come back just to remind you that you twist on every 6th row from now on for the whole length of the cardigan, the whole front of the cardigan. Right, so this is the reverse side of my work. I've done all my purls right up until I have to do my knits again. And now this is where I had twisted. And so all you do is just do your purls. Might be a little bit tight because it's been twisted. And then I go back to knitting those 3 stitches for the border. And then I purl again to the end. So I purled to the end. I'll just quickly show the other side again. And now you can see a little bit clearer. This is my stocking stitch area. There are my purl rows, and there's my twisting for the cable just starting to show up a little bit clearer. And so as I get further along, I'll come back and show you. But all you need to do is do the twisting now on every 6th row when it's facing up. So I did row 1, and now this will be row 2. But before I do that, I'm going to finish this other side. So I hope that makes sense. I'll come back a bit further along to just reinforce what I've shown you. Right, so I'm now up to my 6th side, and I'm taking off the stitch marker. You can leave yours. I'm leaving my pocket stitch marker there, but I'm taking off the one where it shows where I'm starting to purl for the border, because I can actually see that quite clearly now that I'm further along with my knitting. So let's do my purls. Then I'm going to do another twist. Take off 3. Bring it to the front so that I stay consistent with the direction of the twist, and knit 3 off my needle. Just ignore that cable needle poking up there. Just move that along so I don't lose my stitches. Bring my cable needle up, make sure it's straight. Make sure you haven't twisted it like this. Make sure your knitting stays straight. And then I'm just going to knit these 3 stitches. And then I'm going to purl these 3 for the border. Just the angle, the way I've got my camera set up, there's not enough room for my big long needles. And then I'm going to take that marker out because that was just to remind me on the other side to do knitting instead of purling, and I don't think I need it anymore, but you can leave all your markers there, but just leave your pocket markers there. And then I knit to the end. That's a pocket marker that's going to stay there till I've done my pocket. And then I'll show you what the second twist looks like. So there you can see, this is the front side, there's my knitting, and then you can see the border coming up where you've got all your purls, and these were the 6 stitches where you're twisting it, and I've just done my second twist and you can see where it's twisted. So because we're counting now, this is row 1 on the back, and row 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Every 6th row you're going to just twist like that all the way up the front of your cardigan till you get to the same length as your back. So I don't need to show you anymore because you have the idea, and this is how I've been writing it down. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. On the 5th row I twisted because when we started our knitting, row 1 was on the front, but now after we've done our cable, row 1 is on the back. So I've just done my 6th row, which was a twist, and so I'm just going to keep counting along like this because I do get mistaken. I can't sometimes exactly see where row 1 starts again or row 2, so I just will end up with a piece of paper with all my numbers on it, and that just keeps me going. And I will come back, it'll be row 32, so I'm going to have to start counting and just putting a stitch marker off to the side here every 5 rows until I get to row 32, and on row 32 I will show you how to put the pockets on, and it won't be on a twisting row, it'll be in between a twisting row. So I hope that's starting to make sense now. So I'm going to come back when it's time to put the pocket in, and then you'll be able to just carry on with the twisting cables yourself because everything will be done. So that'll be the end of the video. So I'm just going to do a few more rows, a few more twists, and I will come back and show you how to do the pockets. So I hope you've persevered through this. once you see what I'm doing, you can understand it. So I just need to remember now that I've got to do the twist on this side. So that's, as I say, you never put your work down when it's separated like this. I make sure I do this one, and it's all on the same needle. And I mark my rows so I know exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to do this, but I won't come back now until I'm ready to do the pockets. This is ending up being a very long video, but if you just watch it slowly, and you can watch it once or twice and then have a go and work along with me, and you can just pause it as you're working. Right, so I have been working my way up the cardigan, doing my cables. Now you can really see what it starts to look like, and I'm very pleased that I managed to find the 2 balls of yarn where the colours working up perfectly, exactly the same. So that's the first time it's happened. So I've been counting my rows up the front as I've been going. I've been counting in 5s until it matched the same amount of rows as the pockets I'd done. So when you put the pockets in, I like to just sew them down to the top of the ribbing on the wrong side, so that you can't see any stitching coming through. It just ends up right at the top of the ribbing. So now I am ready to put in the pockets. So that's the exciting part, and then I can forget about them. So normally I put my pockets individually onto one of these, let me find one, longer double pointed needles or cable needles, or whatever you want to call them, and I just leave it there. But I've realized I can actually knit off my longer needle, so I will just do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit up until my cable, my pocket marker here. So I'm just going to knit up to there, and then I'll be back. So my last stitch, and then I'm just going to remove that marker because I won't need it. And notice I'm doing this on the right side. You always put your pockets in on the right side. And then what I do is, my pockets are 18 stitches. Let me double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. I probably should have done about 20 or 22. They're very narrow, but I'll get my skinny little fingers in there. The number of stitches that you take off here need to match your pocket. But anyway, this is where these big long pins come in. And I'm going to make sure your stitches are back on your needle so they don't fall off while you're doing this. So I'm just going to carefully take my stitches off until I get up to my other marker for the pocket. And take off that marker, and I'm going to close this up so I don't lose any stitches, and I'll just take that back a bit, and then I'm just going to double check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. And then you leave it at the front of your work. This is now going to stay at the front of your work for the rest of the time that you're knitting the front. And then later on, when you've finished the front and you've just about finished the cardigan, you'll pick up these stitches again and you'll knit just a little bit of ribbing and then gently sew it down to the front of the cardigan. But for the time being, that will sit at the front. And then what I'm going to do is I get one of my pockets and I'm going to make sure you're picking up your working yarn, not your pocket yarn. I'm going to start knitting in the pocket, that first stitch. Just pull that back on that yarn. So it doesn't matter it's a different colour because you don't actually see the pocket. It sits inside at the back. I find it easier to make pockets this way than to sew on patch pockets. I find sewing on patch pockets, I can always see where I've sewn them on, and I think these type of pockets look much tidier because all you're seeing is the work across the front. You don't see any joining or anything where the pocket is. So I'll show you once I've done this. So that's my other pocket. I'll put that out the way for now. And so I've knit that on. You put it at the back. And all the extra yarn I've got to sew it up at the back later is going to sit at the back here. So you won't even see it. And then make sure you're using your working yarn again, not the yarn that comes from the pocket, the working yarn here. You'll just finish knitting these last stitches for the front. It's a bit cumbersome at the beginning, but later on, as you move further along the cardigan, that great big pin won't be in your way. So just persevere carefully. This is just the hardest part. There you go. One pocket finished. And as you can see, you can't even see that lining at the back. There it is, down in there. And so I'll just keep continuing now, knitting with these stitches here, because this is where the ribbing goes for the front of the pocket, and this is why you don't even see where the pocket goes. When you sew the back of the pocket on, this is why I've got a bit of yarn here to start sewing, but you've also got a bit here at the bottom. I stretch it down just so it touches the top of the ribbing. Now my calculations were wrong. These were 32 rows, and when I got to row 32 I had to twist. And remember I said you want to be in between the twists, so I've done an extra row at the back. But it doesn't matter because it will stretch down a little bit, and you just tack it down very carefully all the way around and making sure that your stitches don't come out the front here. So that's one successfully done. Now this pocket I had taken off the markers, so I'm going to just count my way along. I think I did 8 stitches. 2, 4, 6, 8. I think I'd done 8 stitches, hadn't I? So, oops, there's my other one. So I'm just going to repeat that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That should be right. Yes, because I had 3 stitches carrying on before I got to the others. So there's 8. So I want to now take 18 of them off. I should have left my markers on, shouldn't I? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There you go, there's a second one in the front. Just move those stitches back so we don't let them drop off. Here's my other pocket. I'm just going to knit that in, making sure I'm using the working yarn. This one always stretches out. Look, it stretches way out, but that's okay because I can pull on the pocket yarn. So I'll just knit these in. It is so simple when you see how it's finally done. There you go, put that out the way, put that all over the back, pull on the yarn and then making sure I'm using my working yarn, I will once again knit to the, put that out the way, knit to the end of the row. So I'll come back when I've done that. Right, so there's my 2 fronts now have their pockets. So I hope that has helped you. Please give it a go. It is quite simple if you just take it nice and slowly. You can easily pause this video and start again if you make a mistake. But now I don't need to worry about the pockets at all. I'm going to continue counting up the side to match up the same number of rows as my back. There is no more, well, there's no shaping at all. These are going to be just oblongs. I don't do shaping for the shoulders. It'll be a drop shoulder, but I don't put shaping in for the neckline either. You can if you want to and you like doing that and you know how, but this is how I do my cardigans with no shaping at all. So these are just going to be oblongs, straight up, no decreasing, until I get to the same length as the back now. But just remembering that every 6th row I need to do a twist. So I've written down already that this was my row 2 that I was putting the pockets in. So when you turn over, you'll just keep on going with the pattern and you can see you've just got your stitches here as normal and you just ignore the front. So I hope this tutorial has helped you. I will get this video posted because I know some people are waiting for it already, and then I can I'll show you the next stage in part 3. So enjoy yourself and let me know how you're getting along. Thank you for watching. Bye.